So after I blow it up, I'm gonna rebuild it. What do you think? So maybe blowing up my farms is not the best idea, but remodeling them is a great idea. And I'm gonna do that today with the new Crafter Workstation. You can get a crafter by combining 5 iron, 2 redstone dust, a crafting table, and a dropper. Once crafted, the crafter can automatically craft items for you so you don't have to craft them yourself. That's so much crafting. I'm sure that joke's been made before, many times. So now we know how to get a crafter, but how does it work? Okay, the basic things you need to know about the crafter. When you open it, it looks just like a crafting table interface, and you can place items into it just like a regular crafting table. And then you'll notice this little grayed out arrow with the output slot right here. We actually can't take this gold ingot out of there. It's stuck. Also, in a regular crafting table, when you close the interface, it gives you your items back. The crafter actually keeps everything in the inventory slots, which will make for some really interesting contraptions. Now, I'm gonna put a button on the side right here, and we can press it, and out pops the gold ingot. I can also put more than one item in each slot to craft multiple things, and I can press the button 2 more times to get 2 more ingots. Standing and pressing a button is not the most efficient way to do this. So there are ways that we can read the items inside of the crafter and put some automation to it. If we put a comparator out of one of the sides of the crafter and then place down some redstone, I can then place an item in one of the inventory slots, and you'll notice right away that 1 redstone lights up. If I put a second inventory item in the second slot, we get a second redstone, and a third, and on and on and on and on we go until we get to 9. And you can see that this last redstone, which is the 9th redstone, is just barely lit up. If I put a 10th down, that one is not on at all. It doesn't really make a difference if you put multiple items in these slots. The redstone will only go up to a signal strength of 9, so we have an exact number to work with. You can also toggle these slots on and off, and I've toggled 6 here just for an example. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 redstone are lit up, and if I press another one, it doesn't matter which order they're in, it's only going to light up number 7 right here. So the order of slots don't matter, but only the amount that are either toggled or have an item present. There are a lot of complex things that you can do with the crafter, and this is just the beginning and the basics. And speaking of the beginning, I blew up the iron farm at the very beginning of the video, and rest assured, it was just done in a creative copy. We're fine. It's not really blown up. All the villagers are safe. I am going to remodel that in there, but I do think we're going to start over here with the gold farm. I didn't give a tutorial on any of this because I knew that we were going to rip it down, and pretty much the only thing that I'm going to leave are the portals and the circuitry to activate the portals. So all of the item sorting, all of the storage, it's going to go. This is the flint and steel crafter, and I need to build 4 more of them. I went ahead and pre-built one so that I could kind of get a feel for the space, make sure everything was gonna fit okay. But what I'm gonna do is start by placing a block down right here, followed by a crafter on top of that block facing forward, because these are directional. You can place them facing up to any of the sides. You can have them facing down. Crafters are pretty versatile. And then on each side of this crafter, I'm gonna put 1 hopper, followed by a block directly behind those hoppers, and then on the right hopper back here, I'm going to put 1 block right there. And then over here, instead of another block, I'm actually going to put a hopper temporarily, followed by a hopper facing into it. We'll break that temporary hopper and then place another hopper facing directly back into this one. Then on top of this block, I'm going to put a comparator facing this direction and a comparator on top of this hopper facing the same direction, followed by a block here and here with a redstone torch on the back of both of those blocks, and then a block right here on the ground, followed by redstone dust. And then on top of this glass right here, I'm going to place 1 more redstone dust, which will lock that hopper. And actually, placing a block right here with redstone dust on top of it will also lock that hopper, but the system won't work because this redstone will be activated whenever one of these comparators turns on, and it's just gonna break the system. So it doesn't work. You gotta break that block and make sure the redstone is down at the bottom level of the hopper. And that should be about everything except for one more comparator right here. I'm gonna open up the crafter interface and lock every single slot except for the first two. And in the first one, I'm gonna put a full stack of flint, and in the second one, I'm gonna put a full stack of iron, which will give us a crafting recipe of flint and steel. Nothing's gonna happen just yet, but I'm gonna put another piece or two of flint in this first hopper, and you can see right away that this comparator has turned on, reading that hopper through that block, and it has powered this block, deactivating that torch, but nothing has happened yet because this redstone dust is actually still powered by this one over here. I've put 4 flint in there. I'm actually only gonna put 1 iron ingot into this slot, and immediately you'll see nothing happens. Oh yes, I forgot one crucial piece of this. This is a hopper clock that we made, and I didn't put the item in for the clock. I'm only gonna put 1 single item in here, and there we go. There goes the flint and steel that just got crafted, but it's not crafting anymore, and here's why. This hopper is empty, but this hopper is not. Whenever one of these 2 hoppers is empty, this crafter will turn off and not push any more items out. The reason that's important is because we don't ever want the crafter itself to become empty. Otherwise, it might start putting items in there in the wrong quantities. Maybe it puts 2 iron and gives us a pressure plate. That would be absolutely not what we want. So it stops crafting whenever that gets empty. All of this is possible because of something called an AND gate. This torch has to be off, and this torch has to be off in order for this to power off and unlock this hopper clock. And whenever the item passes back into this hopper, it will repower this comparator, which will power that block and power this crafter to craft the item inside. That's pretty much it. This is a very, very simple design, and it's pretty easy to build. However, we're faced with one problem. When I connect this up, like this, I'm gonna put a hopper right here as well. This crafter will immediately start pushing items into these hoppers and down into the system below, which is great until this gets full. If this gets full, the crafter is just gonna keep going as long as there's materials to keep going with and spit flint and steel all over the place. And then it's gonna despawn and we're gonna lose materials and waste a bunch of stuff. So we don't want that to happen, and there's an incredibly easy fix for this. And all we gotta do is put a comparator right there. It's going to leave both of these hoppers empty and this one mostly empty, but considering that we've got a ton of hoppers leading down to those dispensers down there, I think we've got more than enough space for flint and steel to last us quite a long time. This one is a great example over here because I've already filled it up. I'm gonna take these out and you're gonna see that it crafted 2 more. I'm gonna do it again. Watch the crafting interface. There it goes. It spit 2 more out, but now it's stopped again. Anytime this reaches 2 slots, and actually technically 1, this actually just crafts 2 before it shuts off. But anytime there's 1 item inside of this hopper, the comparator will read that and say, hey, send a signal here and lock that block so that this can't get powered off anymore by the clock behind it. Another cool little feature about this is that this little light right here on this comparator is indicating that there's still items in these hoppers because this hopper clock is not powered off and the item is passing back and forth. So at just a quick glance, we can actually see that this system still has materials, but it is full. Now all I have to do is place a chest right here. Oh no, I didn't allocate for that problem. There's actually a really good fix for this as well. I'm gonna reverse these. I'm gonna take the iron out of here and the flint out of here, and I'm gonna put the iron in this side because it doesn't really matter. As long as there's items in the slots, they'll go in the correct place. But now I can just put flint in this double chest and it will evenly distribute it between these 2 hoppers. And that's gonna save me a bunch of time on loading. All right, that's awesome. Okay, now I've gotta build 3 more of these and I've gotta rip down this water elevator and move it. And I think what I'm gonna do is move it over to this corner, and then we'll start working on the rest of this system, which will include 1 more crafter at the very least. In order to combine nuggets into ingots and ingots into blocks, I'm going to design a special crafter. And I'm gonna start right here at this block and build 1 up and have a crafter facing sideways. And then I'm gonna crouch down right here and have a crafter facing down. This crafter right here will combine the nuggets into ingots, and this one will combine the ingots into blocks. The redstone circuitry for this is very simple. I'm gonna start with a temporary block right here and a permanent block right there, followed by 1 more block right here and 1 block right here, and then another block right here, here, and here, followed by a target block. Then I'm gonna place a comparator facing out of the back of the crafter, followed by a repeater right here, and then redstone dust all the way down. And you can see that this target block and this comparator will both connect up with that redstone piece. That is very, very important. Next, I'm going to put a block right here with a comparator on top facing into that comparator. And then I'm going to put one more crafter right here. It doesn't really matter which way it's facing. What does matter is that you disable every single slot except for one. This will give this crafter a redstone signal of 8. And then when I change the mode of this comparator right here, it will make it so that this will only activate when this crafter reaches a redstone signal of 9, which is perfect for our circumstance because when there are 9 nuggets in here, it will craft 1 ingot and immediately push it over into this crafter. Then when this crafter gets 9 ingots, it should drop the completed block down here into what will be a water stream going into a water elevator up there somewhere for storage. So far, only this crafter is wired up with a redstone circuit. We need to do the exact same thing over here. So basically just take all of this and mirror it that way. After you've mirrored the redstone circuitry over here, you should have something that looks like this. And just for a quick example of how this works, I'm going to toss some nuggets in here, and as you can see, it is crafting through them very quickly, and all of those ingots got pushed over into this crafter. If I add a couple more right here, we'll get a block, and it pushes it down here. So the next thing that we need to do is take some hoppers right here and right here, followed by a chest right here and a chest right here. And these are going to be the input for nuggets from the farm and ingots from the farm. And when I was tearing this down earlier, I did notice that there was some overflow issues where some of the ingots and nuggets were not making their way into the sorting system. I didn't notice that during my stress test, but in order to avoid that problem now, I am going to have 3 item sorters per item type, which is why I'm putting 3 hoppers on each of these chests. If you've been playing Minecraft for any length of time, you've probably seen this item filter before, but in case you're new, I'll go ahead and go through it with you really quick. And I'm going to start with this hopper right here and place a block directly behind it, followed by a comparator facing away from the hopper, and then a hopper facing directly into that comparator. And then I'm going to place 1 block, 2 blocks, and then a temporary block right here, followed by a 3rd block, and then a block here, and I'll break that temporary block. Then on top of these 3 blocks, I'm going to put redstone dust all the way down, followed by a repeater facing toward the hoppers on this bottom block. And then I'm going to put 1 more block right here with a redstone torch attached to the side. And you should immediately see that this hopper has lit up red, indicating that it is locked. You may not see this on yours because this is a texture pack, but you can tell that it is locked by placing 1 item into the hopper above it, and it's not going to drop anything down. And speaking of this hopper right here, this is actually where the item filter is going to go. And I've got all of this lapis right here that I have renamed to subscribe to BluJay, which, as a reminder, you should definitely do. The reason this has been renamed is so that nothing in the game matches this, and so therefore, nothing is going to ever drop into these slots and break this filter. The only slot that will allow items through is this one right here. And if I fill this slot up to 41, because of the redstone signal strength of this comparator, nothing is going to happen. But the moment that 42 or more items drop into this hopper, it's going to start filtering them down into the system. And for our purposes, this is absolutely perfect because it's going to go into the crafter that will craft up ingots for us. And then I need to do that 2 more times to these 2 hoppers right here in the event that we fill this hopper completely up. And that will help us to avoid any overflow problems where ingots and nuggets will miss these item filters entirely and go on to the next part of the system and break the next part of the system, which is going to be furnaces. And we'll talk about that maybe very briefly, because this episode is all about the crafter after all. So allow me to put these into place and get the ice lane going, and we're just about in business with this gold farm. So I finished building the rotten flesh filter, followed by the gold sword furnace array, and then went to mine for some more flint and stopped by the iron farm, and then dropped all of that off at the flint and steel crafter. At that point, I realized I needed to add fuel to the furnaces, which, lucky for me, Prowl dropped off a bunch for us from his mining expedition in the mountains. I'm gonna have to find a way to repay him for that. And with that, the gold farm is done. And I imagine you're probably thinking to yourself right now, BluJay, you lied to us again. This is 2 times in a row you said you were gonna show us how to build this gold farm, and you did it all off camera. Okay, that might be true, but I am going to show you how it works. This kind of stuff is really easy and not really important to show on camera because it's basically putting down a chest and throwing a hopper into the back of it. If you can't figure that out, might I suggest maybe try going back to the beginning of this series? You got this though, I believe in you. Inside of this chest, I've got 52 gold blocks and plenty of room to store more. And over in this chest, I've got rotten flesh and some scaffolding that apparently I dropped in there. Both of those are auto sorted into their own areas, and I've got a couple of things going on right here. I've got a water elevator for 2 different spots in the gold farm and a drop chute for 2 different spots in the gold farm. This one goes all the way to the bottom. This section over here is the more important section because this is where I tell you all about the magic that we just did behind the scenes. You've seen the flint and steel crafter and the gold combiner crafter, and during that process we also showed off how to auto sort items. It's the exact same thing over here for the rotten flesh. It's just another standard item filter, 41 items. Plus 4 subscribe to BluJay lapis in each of these hoppers, with an ice lane that carries all the items around. Now, buttons. These are very, very important. You can actually see I've got trapdoors over there, and I haven't had any issue with those yet. I may end up swapping them out. But with buttons, your water stream will actually level out and go straight. But for some reason with trapdoors, the water angles this direction, and it was causing some of my items to get stuck right here. So if you experience that problem on your ice lanes as well, make sure you put buttons down. Also, I explained this in the gold farm video. This chest right here is a bumper that allows all of the items that bump into it to ride along the edge of this ice lane to drop into the hoppers. So anywhere along this ice lane that we need items to drop into hoppers, I've got chest bumpers, just to make sure we align those correctly. Over here is a standard dropper elevator, and this is the entire redstone circuit for it. Items go into the dropper, the comparator reads it, the repeater carries that signal to this block, and lights up this redstone signal and repeats that signal back into the comparator to form a clock, so that it will tick every time there's an item in here. And then it will also go into this target block to power that dropper to shoot it up through the water stream and into storage. There wasn't need for one of those over here because the crafter actually spits the item out onto the ground and into the ice lane. Oh, I forgot. Last thing as well. Again, pretty basic early game Minecraft. I've got some hoppers that go down into some blast furnaces to smelt those swords, and one single chest up here to load coal, which will filter down into the chest below it, and then down into the blast furnaces. And that's pretty much it. I know it looks like a tangled mess, and it looks kind of complicated, but when you break it down into its individual parts like we did today, it's honestly quite simple. Now, we're not done yet. I've built 2 crafters, and I'm gonna build at least one more over here in the iron farm, and I've already done some prep work. Some of this I did on a live stream. We finally have stairs to get up into the villager trading hall. It's not decorated yet, and I've still got quite a bit of light blue concrete to replace. But more importantly, I've moved the drop for the iron golems down here. They're sealed off right now, so they can't get in while we're working. And I've also pre-staged some storage with hoppers in the back of the chests. And this is where I'm going to walk you through the item sorting and crafter for the iron farm, which is going to be pretty much like the gold farm, but a lot simpler. Okay, before we build the crafter for the iron farm, here's what we've got going on. A bunch of campfires where the iron golems and cats will land. They will drop the items into the hoppers that are below those campfires, and they will all funnel into one hopper line. These are standard item filters that we've already shown you how to build today, so we're not going to go into it again, but just know there's poppies, string, and iron being filtered out. The poppies and string will go down these hopper lines where they will be directly filtered into their own storage chests, and they'll be delivered to those storage chests by these dropper elevators that we showed you at the gold farm. So again, fairly straightforward, not something we need to go into again. When it comes to the iron, I'm going to drop all of the iron into this single crafter right here, and I'm going to set this up the exact same way I did the gold farm. I'm going to have one comparator that comes out of the side of this crafter, with another comparator feeding directly into the side, and then another crafter right here that I'm going to set to 8 locked slots, and turn this to subtract mode. Then I'm going to have a repeater right here, followed by a block right here, and then redstone dust all the way down the side, feeding into a target block. And that's the entire crafting component for this farm. We don't have nuggets to worry about like we did with the gold farm, so we only need one crafter and one crafting circuit, and as you can see, this should now be working. Oh no, I messed it up. BluJay, there we go. Now it's working. The only thing I'm actually gonna change about this, I'm gonna point this crafter facing down because I need it to funnel into an ice lane, which I'm gonna put right here, which will then go into a water elevator and up to storage. So I got all of the items separated into their own storage units at the iron farm, and then decided to make my way over to my starter base to install one more crafter at the bamboo farm. I used the same circuit as the iron farm combiner, but I locked 8 slots out of the 9 so that bones would go into 1 slot and convert into bone meal. Applying similar principles to the flint and steel crafter, I also installed a locking mechanism that will prevent bone meal from overflowing in the event that this hopper gets full. So as you can see, there are a lot of different uses for the crafter. How are you going to use it? Let me know in the comments, subscribe if you're new, and hey, go get a crafter and start crafting, because I need to sit here and sort through all of this junk, and this junk, and this junk, and this junk. So much junk! It might be time to start thinking about a storage system. Or I could just leave it all on the ground. Yeah, that's probably what I'll do for now.